Okay, so a buddy of mine, Derek, and we've been friends for more than a decade now, and essentially what we've decided to do is take the content that he's interested in, the content that I'm interested in, oftentimes heavily overlap, but the subject matter as a generalization is very much the same, and that's why people become friends. They find stuff that they're very commonly interested in and have stuff to talk about, and they go on enjoy those activities together. But anyway, I'm making my content, Derek's making his content, and though we don't always see eye to eye on the very specific topic, the general overarching subject matter is almost always very enjoyable for both of us. And so what we've decided to do is take my channel, take his channel, and put them together and just have one collaboration of channels. So Derek and I, we have our new channel, Powered by Explosions. And the general premise is anything that runs on gunpowder, gasoline, or electricity, which ideally electricity isn't exploding, but it's stuff that guys are into, like people are into. It doesn't have to be just guys, but it's stuff that we're into. And something that I've always said is that though Derek and I do not always see eye to eye on the what, rather we do see eye to eye on the what, but the how, like it always does, we wind up taking a very different journey to get to the same place. And I think that's actually what's kind of neat. It provides a discussion, something to talk about why Derek is into the thing that he's into and why I'm not into that particular thing, but we absolutely have the appreciation for it. So like if we use the car, for example, like you'll go to a Cars and Coffee or something, you'll have that one person that's like, oh no, it's not a Supra or a BMW, it's awful, it's garbage, it's blah, 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 blah. And it's like, cool, but we're not Supra people, we're not BMW people. We might be, but more importantly, we're car people, and that's what we're here for. And Derek and I are not. Derek's very into Mac, and I'm not. I mean, I have Apple products and whatnot, but he's very into it. He has a wall dedicated to it, and I'm not. But we both love computers, and yeah. So that's kind of something that we're doing. We're creating a new channel. I am taking some of my content from my existing channel and moving it over to the Powered by Explosions channel. So you may have seen some of this content before on my channel. It's simply just been pulled and reloaded to the new Powered by Explosions channel. So if you've already seen it, awesome. If you haven't, that's what this is. So any of those videos that I'm pulling are going to have this as a preface to it, and then this itself will just simply add as a standalone, video for the channel, and essentially just come catch me over at Powered by Explosions. We've got stuff that we've already gotten into. We've got lots of stuff on the way. The rainy season has hit, so it's going to be a little bit slow. Give us time to ramp up and coordinate and get things going. And I think it should be interesting stuff if the general subject matter, motorcycles, cars, jet skis, guns, computers, electronics as a general, if that's your thing, we'll see you over there. We also have some, I don't know, we have some clickbait too, but if you know what I mean. We'll see you there. Okay, so this should be following me using a Insta360 Flow, which is the auto tracking gimbal with the Rode Wireless Go 2 microphone, so remote microphone. All I'm doing right now is I need to get the bike cleaned up a little bit before I go for a ride, and I figured we would actually talk about this bike a little bit. So this is the 2023 Hayabusa, and I haven't said anything about it. I haven't talked about it a whole lot other than, hey, I'm riding it. Here's a little bit of the details about it, but not a whole lot. So I figured we'd get into why this bike exists. What's the deal with this bike? And that is, I don't know, a little bit of a conversation. But first off, we're going to sit here and wash it. We're going to use Motool's Wash and Wax Spray, dry cleaner and protective wax. It's just starting to get nice out. It's not quite 70 yet right this moment, but it's going to be about 70 today. And so we get a lot of
bugs and things like that right now. It's kind of the hatching season, I guess. But anyway, so a little bit of background on the bike situation is that for the last several years, every year, I wind up with at least one new bike. And last year's bike was the Kawasaki ZH2. And so this year, it is the 2023 Hayabusa. But that was not necessarily supposed to be the plan. Last year's bike with the ZH2 was supposed to be the bike that I was just going to keep for a while. And I thought it was going to be exciting. I thought it was going to be interesting. But I think that warrants its own separate sort of follow-up video as to why that didn't work out the way that it was originally in my mind's eye. How it was originally. I'm going to wait for the wind to stop blowing so I can spray this. But anyway, how in my mind's eye that was supposed to work out. It just didn't. And so I wound up back at my dealership of choice, which is Motorsport Hillsboro, in Hillsboro, here in Hillsboro, Oregon. And I talked to him and I was just like, I made the joke. I was like, hey, so the ZH2 isn't what I thought it was going to be. It's not, it's an excellent bike. It just wasn't doing what in my mind's eye thought it was going to be doing for me. And it didn't. And so I told them, I was just like, well, I need something else. And I said, the joke was, I need something exciting or interesting, or I'm going to need contact info for a cocaine dealer. And I don't do drugs. I've never done drugs. I've never even tried a cigarette. So, don't do drugs. But anyway, yeah. So that was the joke that I made. And they asked. They're like, "Well, have you tried a Hayabusa?" And I told them, I was like, "Yeah. I mean, but like a Gen 1. I don't even think I touched the Gen 2. Gen 1 Hayabusa. Yeah." But I was like, I don't think that's me in any sense of the word. So, yeah, I don't think that's the answer at all. And they're like, well, a lot's changed. And I was like, I know, I saw the press material on the new Hayabusa was coming out, and 500 and some odd parts were different. And so I figured, okay, let's do a Hayabusa. And so I actually went home. They didn't have a Hayabusa. So I went home and I thought about it, and I did a ton of research. I went to Reddit and I was just like, hey guys, I buy a new bike every year. What should I do next? And I'm very familiar with the motorcycle, the street motorcycle space, everything that's coming and going in that space. And so I wasn't, I didn't need an education on the motorcycles, but I was just like, what are people excited about right now? And I threw some of the top bikes that I personally would be excited about. And gosh, I'm trying to think of an example, like where that would be. What was that? It reminds me of that movie, the Too Fast and Too Furious, the second. Actually, I think that was the third movie. I'm not sure. No, I guess Tokyo Drift was the third movie. Anyway, Too Fast, Too Furious. So Brian O'Connor or Paul Walker is in Miami, and he's working undercover with the Miami Police Department, and I think that's the right one. I might not even have the right movie. In fact, I don't have the right movie. I take it back. It wasn't that movie. But he's still, it was a Fast and the Furious movie, and he's standing there, and he's picking out police cars, or not police cars, but he's picking out cars that have been impounded by the police. And he's talking to the person who's going through the inventory with him, and he's like, that one, and that one, and that one, and essentially they're just cars that he's excited about. And he was actually able to nail down somebody they were going to use as an in to get into one of the races or whatever, and they just needed somebody connected. And they're like, well, how did you know it was that guy? And he's like, well, that's a car that I would drive. And that's kind of just what this reminded me of, is that when I was looking at my selection that I sent over to Reddit, I know that was a whole rant about something that didn't make sense, didn't seem like there was a connection or segue. But anyway, when I sent it over to Reddit, it was just a list of bikes that I would be excited to ride, because there's lots of stuff that's out there that's cool, that's neat, that's whatever, and I can look at, you know, I can go to a bike meet and, you know, appreciate, but it's not for me. It's not something I'm personally going to be excited about in my own garage space on my own ride, and that's what the list was that I sent over to Reddit. Anyway, so the Reddit vote was actually kind of interesting. There's a lot of commentary that wasn't relevant or constructive to the conversation at all, but there was a voice that kind of, it didn't get the majority vote, and but it had the most compelling conversation, like the written dialogue, if you will, to the vote. And so I thought about that, and I was like, okay, I think so. It was the Kawasaki H2 and the Panigale V4 that tied for top pick, and then I want to say it was the S1000RR and the Hayabusa that also tied for second pick. But the conversation, the meaningful input to the vote itself, the written dialogue, was most backed and supported by the Suzuki Hayabusa. And to be honest, I was looking at the Hayabusa first anyway. But again, my dealer of choice didn't have one. So at this point now, I've had the conversation with the dealership. I've done some research and homework on what the Hayabusa has changed from the last time that I had ridden one. And I went to the internet, and the internet was like, hey, you know, here's a reasonable thought conversation regarding this specific bike, regarding the Hayabusa. And so instead of, you know, just popping over directly to a biased field of Hayabusa people going, hey, should I get a Hayabusa? They're either going to tell you yes, or they're going to tell you no, or they're going to tell you, hey, it's the best starting bike, like starter bike that you can get. So anyway, I haven't gotten that rear front fender in a long time, or ever. But yeah, so at that point, I'm now committed, in my mind, I am committed to a Hayabusa. And so the dealership actually calls me. They go, hey, listen, we have another dealer that we work with down south, and they have a Suzuki Hayabusa. And I thought it was actually a 22, but they're like, hey, we have a Suzuki Hayabusa, and are you sure for sure that you want this, one of these things? Because we can go get it from them. We'll do a dealer trade, and that's fine, but you have to be sure, because excuse me, we have to take in a couple of quads that we don't really want. We have to take those into inventory, that we really don't want them. They just don't sell very well here. But that's the deal. If we want the Hayabusa, we also have to buy these from them also. Are you sure you want the Hayabusa? And I said, yes, I am sure I want the Hayabusa. Thanks for whatever, you know, make the deal. I'll take the Hayabusa. And so, cool, deal's done, I guess. You know, they're gonna do whatever it is that they do to have that conversation for the dealer trade, and at some point there will be a Hayabusa in my local area. And so there were other dealerships that had Hayabusas. It's just that I'm fairly loyal to that dealership, and I wasn't in a rush. This was the middle of, like, this was just before, I want to say it was just before Thanksgiving that we were having this conversation. And so, yeah, they go and they do the deal, and I'm not super worried about going to another dealership because the riding season's over here in the Pacific Northwest anyway. It's Heidi, and yeah, super not in a rush, whatever. I'll work with them. They get the thing whenever they're gonna get it, and then I'll have a Hayabusa, I guess. Well, a few days go by, and I was curious, so I reached out and I just said, hey, out of curiosity, like, what kind of time frame are we looking at? and something to bear in mind is that I still have the ZH2. The way that my traditional behavior works is that I get the new bike, I sell the prior year bike back to them, and they make lots of money off of me doing that. And that's just the relationship, and that I'm okay with it. So anyway, they're like, well, it's probably going to be a couple of weeks. And so now bear in mind, this is like, I don't know, 3 days after they checked with me and they said, hey, are you sure? And so 3 days later I reach out and I say, hey, rough ETA. They say it's probably going to be a few weeks. Okay, not a problem. Well, anyway, my guy at the place reaches back out to me later that day, near the end of the business day, and he's like, hey, just kidding, your bike showed up on a truck today. It's here. So 3 days after I said, hey, rough ETA, and they told me a couple of weeks, or I'm sorry, I reached out and said, hey, when do you think? And they said a couple of weeks. It was there. So showed up, and that's cool, I guess. Like 4 days after we confirmed the deal, yes, I for sure want it. This bike is here. So anyway, cool. The bike's there, but it's near the end of the business day. We're not going to be able to get through, all the paperwork and everything and getting the bike over to me at that point. So my guy reaches out and he's like, hey, about a half an hour later. So he sends me pictures, actually, when it shows up on the truck. He's like, hey, your bike's here with pictures. And about a half an hour later, he messages me. He's like, hey, don't come down. The bike isn't going to be ready. Turns out there is freight damage. And so I asked, and it's like, well, how bad? How bad is the freight damage? And he sends me pictures, and it's not great. The right fairing has a hole in it, essentially, and then the right side is where all the damage is. The exhaust shield is bent and scuffed up, and the peg is broken. The rider peg is broken, and so it's not good. But and they're not really sure what the plan is for addressing that. And so he's like, yeah, don't come down. So then he messages me later, and he's like, hey, so we're gonna have Suzuki deal with it. They're gonna just go ahead and replace everything. Is that cool? Yeah, that's cool. First party, fix. That's fine with me. And again, it's like October or something, November maybe even. I think it was near Thanksgiving, Halloween, something like that. And so yes, I'm fine with that. It's going to be a little while before parts arrive, and once that's all said and done, they'll do the repair, and then we'll go through the paperwork, and then I'll have the Hayabusa. Not a problem. Again, because of the time of year, super, super not worried about it. So anyway, he asked me, he's like, hey, do you want the bike now? Like, we're going to definitely get these parts and everything, but do you want the bike now? Because normally I'm very American in regards to the instant gratification. I just want, like, my stuff is there and I want to go pick it up and I'm excited about it. And we're all that way. We're excited about it and we want to ride it right now. We want to play with our new toys right now. And so this was not an exception. And I was like, well, yeah, actually, if that's possible, yeah, I would love to come take a look at it. Like, there's nothing mechanically wrong with it. I can ride this bike. And he's like, yeah. So I head down there the next day. I said, when we had this conversation, the day that it arrived, it was near end of business day. It wasn't going to work out that day. And go down there and we do the paperwork and get it all squared away. It's my bike. And here's what was interesting. I took the ZH2 over there, and the number that they gave me for the ZH2 was so low that, despite the fact that I know that they make money off of this, like a decent chunk of money off of this every single time, I was not comfortable with, hey, look at me. Is it going to? No. oh, that's what I was saying when the video got all wompity, was that the number was so low regarding the trade-in that I said, hey, I am absolutely not okay with that number. We weren't able to come to an agreement in the number, which is fine. And so I wound up going home with my ZH2. No, I didn't, actually. I'm sorry. I put it on the showroom floor and said, hey, we'll just put it there for... I can't remember what that word is. Commissary is not the word. Anyway, consignment. Yeah, put it on consignment. And so if someone comes along to buy the bike, great. If not, that's okay too, and I'll just go home with it eventually. So I go home on the Hayabusa, and several weeks go by, a few weeks go by, and they reach out and they're like, hey, the parts are here, so head back to the dealership. And I actually ordered at the time when the bike arrived, I ordered some Suzuki stuff. It comes with the rear seat and the grab bar, but I ordered the match cowl and I got the factory heated grip. So all of that stuff had arrived at the same time. Great. So they do the install, they replace the components, and we're good to go. So the ZH2 rather, is still sitting there, which is okay. And it continues to sit there. And then I decided to try to ride the Hayabusa through the summer months, which is not really that effective. Despite the heated grips, I even wired up and put, I wired in like a cable off the battery to go to heated gear, like wired heated gear for the stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I was able to get some interesting winter riding days out of it, but it's really sketchy on new tires with ice on the ground and everything. I don't recommend it. But I am just now getting into the nice weather here with me all backlit and everything, which is not good. But just now starting to get into the nice weather to see what I think of this bike. That said, the ZH2 sat for a little bit, and I don't know, I missed it or something, and I needed a second bike for something. We've got the CBR 1000RR right there, but I needed a third bike for something. We got a Slingshot. We just needed a bunch of vehicles for something, like a hangout day. And so I brought the thing home, canceled the consignment, and now I have the ZH2 sitting here and the Hayabusa. And yeah, so I guess that's the plan. That's why the Hayabusa exists. That's the story of getting the Hayabusa. I don't have a whole lot to say about it right now. I think that's its own separate thing to get into, because I definitely should talk about it once I feel that I've put enough into riding it in the environment that it really should be ridden in, not the winter. And I've got some stuff to say about the ZH2 that's sort of this realization a year later, considerations about it. And I'll get into that. Looks like Heidi's on her way back through. So we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. We're going to take off and go get some errands done. And yeah, so that's the story of getting the Hayabusa. Stick around for the next one. We'll talk about thoughts and opinions on it from like a non-review perspective. All right, take care.